Welcome back, tribe. Got an interesting article here. Let's get into it. From Vice. It's not your imagination. Single women. There literally aren't enough men out there. Could you believe that? It says we talked to author John Berger about the shortage of educated men, where women should go if they really want to land a husband, and why boys aren't going to college in the first place. Well, there's a gynocentric movement that is basically the one to blame for all that, but we can't say that. So let's see what their excuses are. We all have that friend, that beautiful, intelligent, driven woman who, like Katherine Heigl in every rom-com, can't find a decent date. Every guy she goes out with is an asshole. What a shocker. She consistently dates below her league, and she's on the verge of giving up on a committed relationship altogether. See, here's where the dissonance already comes. Every man she dates is, quote, below her league, yet they don't stick around and offer commitment. Whose value's higher than whose? Not long after he turned 30, the writer John Berger realized he and his wife know a lot of women like that. The couple didn't have a lot of single male friends left, but the many single women they knew all seemed to be buyers stuck in a seller's market. One of those friends, Berger told me, had been dating a guy for a couple years. It certainly seemed like they were well on their way to getting married. She was in her late 30s. He was in his mid 40s. She really wants to have kids, get married, the whole thing. And she's amazing in every way. If she's amazing in every way, why doesn't she have a ring? Make it make sense. She's amazing in every single way. No man wants to put a ring on it. Please explain that. Ridiculous. One day at lunch, Berger casually asked her about her boyfriend. Her whole expression changed, Berger recalled. They had just broken up. They'd been dating for over 2 years, and he said he just wasn't ready to settle down. This got Berger, a former economics writer for Fortune and Money, thinking, how could a man of that age be so cavalier about casting aside such an amazing woman? And why do we all have similar stories of incredible female friends trapped for years in dating hell? Why are there so many great single women? Where are all the great single men? Boys, we already know what's going on here. That guy, mid-40s, whatever, does not want to date an old hag that's 37, whatever she is. Has to freeze her eggs. Is going to have trouble conceiving a child. Doesn't know how to do womanly things, most likely, because she focused on her career. This so-called superwoman, amazing in every way, except the way a man needs her to be. No value was seen in that woman. That's why she got no ring. 2 years was her testing phase, and she failed. The dude bolted. And so many women go through this exact same thing. Using his background in economics and statistics, which has nothing to do with what's happening here, Berger sought out an answer. The result in his recent book, Datanomics, How Dating Became a Lopsided Numbers Game, a clever read, with a sobering conclusion. There simply aren't enough college-educated men to go around. I don't know, some sort of gynocentric society that we've built with a movement that's pushed women really hard in education has left our boys behind in schools. We no longer teach with our hands. We just teach by slides up on a screen and talking all the time. Men learn through their hands. Women learn through talking. Okay. For every 4 college-educated women in my generation, there are 3 college-educated men. The result, what Berger calls a musical chairs of the heart. How cute is that? As the men pair off with partners, unpartnered straight women are left with fewer and fewer options. And millions of them are eventually left with no options at all. I sat down for a long talk with Berger and found out why boys aren't graduating from college, why your best friend is single, and why more women should consider moving to Silicon Valley. Yes, moving to Silicon Valley is totally going to help them. Just surround them by complete soy boys that absolutely disgust every single woman. Yes, let's do that. Vice asks, how did you determine that there was a nationwide man deficit among the college educated? I don't know, every single statistic says men are falling behind. John Berger, I think when I began the research, I actually thought the conclusion was a little different. I assumed this was a New York problem or a big city thing. Like in New York, I thought it had something to do with the labor market here. Fashion and PR and media attract a lot of women, and Wall Street isn't nearly the all-male bash that it used to be. So I figured there would be all those shifts in the labor market. I thought maybe there was something unique about LA and Washington and New York that made them particularly bad for women. It turns out I was wrong. In fact, what I call the college man deficit is worse in rural states like Montana and West Virginia and Mississippi than in California and New York. It's a nationwide phenomenon. You know, at this point, we all know what a bad deal college is, especially men. I think a good thing for men is to go into trades. Honestly, why get up to $100,000 in debt up to your eyeballs for a job that'll probably vanish by the time you graduate, working for a company that doesn't know who you are, a faceless corporation where you make no difference? For what, dude? To get into debt and come out of college with a mortgage, basically, that you can't expunge through bankruptcy. You're stuck to that. So a lot of men, the smart ones, are going into trade schools. Why wouldn't you? You're going to make the same, if not more. You're going to get a whole truck from the company. You can start your own business within a few years once you get the trade learned, in person on the site, actually know what's going on. Yes, it's sometimes backbreaking work. Yes, you're going to have to work with your hands. Yes, you'll be out in the sun perhaps. Yeah, you'll be pulling 12-hour shifts. You're not in an air-conditioned room, but I don't know, man. At this point, there's little trade-offs you got to think of. I would not want to graduate with $100,000 in debt from a college that's going to try to indoctrinate basically everybody around me and tell me how evil I am and why I should be ashamed and I have so much privilege because I'm a man, etc., etc. I'm over that. And I think a lot of men are too. So we're seeing college as a bad deal. And a lot of men don't want to go through that. So where are all the men, they ask? I mean, they exist. They're just not going to college. This isn't China or India, where they have a man-made gender imbalance because of all sorts of horrendous things. Men out there, they're just not going to college. Last year, about 35% more women than men graduated from college. That's huge. The Department of Education projects by the class 2023, there will be 47% more women than men graduating from college. That's 3 women for every 2 men, essentially. And the numbers are going to keep getting worse. Obviously, none of this would matter if we were all a little bit more open-minded about who we are willing to date and marry. You see, look, there it is, man. There is the problem. It's not if we were all a little more open-minded, it's if women were a little bit more open-minded. That's the clown show of this. Women have insane standards and demands today. We know hypergamy. They will not date a man lesser than them. So the more educated they get, the more money they make, the more perceived prestige they have. You as a man have to match that or surpass it in some sort of way. So a lot of these women are going to pass up good men that are making 6 figures welding, plumbing, whatever, electricians in trade school, coming out of trade schools. Like, these guys are going to make 6 figures. But, there's nothing prestigious about that. Unbelievable. But there have been multiple studies on this, and it turns out Americans have become less likely over the past 50 years to marry and date across educational lines. So educational intermarriage, I don't know if that's a real term. Maybe I just made it up. Is at its lowest rate in 50 years. Wow. Does that mean in the working class dating market that there are a lot of single men? What implications does that have, they ask? Among non-college educated singles ages 22 to 29, there are 9.4 million men and 7.1 million women. And if you look at the women in that age group who are non-college educated, something like 30% of the women are married, but only 22% of the men are married. By the time a man gets to that level, honestly, he's ready to check out when he's been exposed to the dating market and he sees what's out there. It's just garbage all around. And, I'm not just going to put this on women, but men need to work on themselves as well. But men aren't the ones with the insane demands. Being unwilling to consider working class guys affects women in ways that it doesn't affect men. It's totally unfair, and I get that. Yeah, this is self-imposed. Women are suffering by their own hand only. There's no other way you can explain this. The other interesting thing, and you see this in China too, if you look at the census data on fully employed non-college educated men aged 25 to 30, the ones who are married earn 20% more than the ones who are not married. Oof, that is not a statistic that's good for women. Which tells me that in order to get married and attract a wife, you have to earn more and be more entrepreneurial and work harder. Is there also an issue for American women where the more educated you are, the smaller your dating pool becomes? It feels the smarter you are as a woman, the smaller your dating pool is, because women seem less likely to date men less intelligent than themselves. A woman will never date a man she's superior to. This is why that earlier quip about moving to Silicon Valley, it's not only that they want smarter men, but they need capable, strong men. They want it all. So going over to some pipsqueak that's going to let you run all over him, has no backbone, is going to cause them to basically hate men and say, oh, men are garbage. My man is such a wimp, and she's going to end up cheating on him, and that guy's going to end up getting divorced, wrecked in court. We all know the whole story. And then it says, is there also, and then it says, it's not just women. Both men and women are unlikely to date and marry across those lines. It just doesn't matter for the men because the pool of educated women is so vast that their own classism doesn't really punish them. Again, this is a load of shit. Men will date a chick that works at McDonald's if she is hot as hell. And if she happens to have a feminine personality, she's supportive. She gives him the things that he doesn't need to buy with money. She's not just a cook. She's not just a cleaner. She can turn a house into a home, supports his dream, makes his life easier in ways that money can't buy. A life partner. That's all that matters to men that are successful in that position, to take on a woman and keep her as like a stay-at-home wife, which is what all men want. Said, fair enough. What are some of the things women can do to increase their likelihood of finding a partner, other than considering working class guys? Oh, the horror. The horror. You mean considering a working class guy? The horror. Oh my God. Other than considering working class guys. The gall to say that. What can we possibly do to get a man other than going with those other guys that don't do white collar work? We're too good for that. So can you tell us what we can do besides, the other 50% of men, basically? Unreal, dude. Goes on to say, the guy asks her how old she is. Says, I'm 23. So what I'm about to say is easier advice for somebody who's 23 or 22. What I'm about to tell you is probably not workable for a 45-year-old with a whole life here in New York, a family, a career. It's not an absolute, but as you go from East Coast to West Coast, the ratios among college grads get a little better. There are certain pockets, far and away. The best dating market in the country for women is Silicon Valley, San Jose, San Francisco. Even with the gay population, San Francisco is still far better. So if you're just starting out, I'm not saying you're going to base your whole life around finding a man, yeah. Then it goes on to say, but if you're really marriage oriented, then this is a high priority for you and you have geographical flexibility. You might want to put this on your list, San Jose, Denver, Seattle. Those are going to be better dating markets for women than Miami or Fort Lauderdale or New York. Yeah, good luck going to Miami. They're all plastic fantastic there and they're literally all just models. And all they do is stay fit. And they snag up a rich sugar daddy. These women are invisible. That's really interesting because it also speaks to tech's problem as a very, very male-dominated industry. Here we go. Right, back east, the city with the best gender ratio is probably Columbus, Ohio, which has a real burgeoning tech industry there. I'm making a quantitative argument, not a qualitative argument. I don't know if these tech guys are good guys or whether... I don't know if they can carry a conversation or not. Yeah, they're nerds, dude. A lot of them are super awkward with women. This is not going to work. They can't, the girl replied immediately. Of course. I'm just telling you by the numbers. I think they're less likely to act like dickheads because they don't have the same kind of leverage. These people are clueless. Why are more women graduating from college than men? Can you say the F word? Can you say it? Ism? No, you can't. Obviously, if we had this conversation 40 years ago, this conversation would have looked different. There would have been a lot more college-educated men than women. Once upon a time, colleges were discriminating blatantly against female applicants, thinking they only went to college to get their Miss degree. High schools did a particularly wretched job when it came to teaching girls in math and sciences. So there are a whole host of reasons why girls underperformed in high school and were discriminated against when it came to college applications, but Title IX leveled the playing field. But I'm reluctant to entirely credit Title IX because women started attending college in other countries where there was no Title IX, and the gains remained around the same. So the simple question is, if it's not Title IX, what is it? What is it, fellas? Claudia Golden, who is an economist at Harvard, her conclusion is that it's the birth control pill. You can't make this up. Literally, I'm shocked right now. Their answer to why more women are going to college today is the birth control pill. Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. All right. Wow. Her argument is that the big driver of gains in female college enrollment is the expectation of workforce participation. If you're getting married at 21 or 22 and having kids sooner thereafter, the payoff of going to college is very small. If you can plan your life with greater certainty and delay marriage and childbirth, the investment value of college goes up. So she credits the pill. Unreal. This woman is so clueless. Wow. That kind of explains how we got to the 50-50 enrollment. It doesn't explain how we got to the 58-42. And my argument is that the old discrimination against women obscured a fundamental biological truth. Girls' brains mature at a faster rate than boys' brains. Girls mature faster socially and intellectually. They're about a year ahead of boys. When it comes to actual schoolwork, girls do their schoolwork better. Girls are more organized. They're less likely to be diagnosed with ADHD, which is a complete bullshit diagnosis. They don't get put in jail at the same rates. So I think girls have a developmental advantage when it comes to college preparation. No, you don't have an advantage. No. We know what it is, guys. I can't say it because YouTube doesn't like people to say it. We'll call it a gynocentric movement that's made it their number one goal to push women ahead of men and girls in school. We don't even teach men in the way they learn properly. Whatever happened to shop class? Do you guys remember working with your hands? That disappeared. They don't learn like that today. You know what happens? Your kid goes into class, they play some saved lecture, and the teacher just sitting down half the time doesn't even care. She's just out there trying to get her pension. This is a complete joke. So at the rates we're going, is there going to have to be affirmative action for boys to keep things even? A lot of elite private colleges are already engaging in quiet, de facto, under the table affirmative action for boys. I went to Brown. The acceptance rate for boys is 11%. For girls, it's 7%. The worst example is Vassar. Their acceptance rate for boys is 34%, and for girls, it's 18 or 19%. What's interesting is that if you look at the top public universities that are bound by Title IX when it comes to admissions, they all accept girls at a higher rate than boys. Right, because girls are better applicants, they say. Unreal. It's a chicken and egg thing. If marriage is harder to come by, do you seek it less? Do you think that the attitude of men in their 30s and 40s who don't feel the need to settle down can be chalked up purely to the way the deck is stacked in their favor? This girl says this. The deck is stacked into men's favor. Oh my God. Didn't we just say that women had like insane biological advantages and that they learn better and mature more and I don't know, like 10 million other benefits? That's so weird. The one thing I never totally decided on was how much of this conscious versus subconscious. So when a young woman or a young man gets to school where there are a lot more women than men, there's this highly intense hookup culture. Is it, and then in quote, well, there are 3 of us for every 2 of them. I'm going to change my behavior as a result. Or is it a when in Rome kind of thing? I mean, the gynocentric movement pushed female empowerment and sexual liberation for women. And the entire hookup culture was born out of that. Women having been empowered, sexually speaking. And now they're complaining that men are enjoying the easy behavior of women. They're just giving it out for free, man. And now it's an issue. Men don't value us anymore. Men don't want to commit. Men don't want to put rings on. Duh. All the women are giving it for free. Then it says, or is it that the attitudes towards marriage are changing? Do you think that my generation just places less of a value on long-term romantic commitment? Well, it's a chicken and egg thing. If marriage is harder to come by, do you seek it less? I mean, the marriage rate for women in Silicon Valley is much higher than in New York's. And the divorce rates are lower too. Of course, she has her beta bucks and he's completely whipped around her finger. He's got a high salary and she's got the entire access to the money. Of course, she's going to stay. What else did you find out about the divorce? Or what else did you find out about divorce? It seems obvious that if women are in short supply, then you're going to try harder to hold on to your wife. There's actually a lot of social science research on sex ratios that grows out of animal behavior and zoology. There's a study in the book I reference. What researchers will do is look at nominally monogamous species. They'll mess around with the sex ratios in a controlled population and take the ratio from a 5 to 6 males for every 4 females to start. What they found is that the male desertion rate, once they made the population overly male, declined from 22 to 11% because they don't have any other options, she says. But wait for this. When they took it the other way and made it 6 females for every 4 males, the male desertion rate went from 22% to 52%. So the prevailing mating culture went from monogamy to polygamy, just by changing the sex ratio. The argument is that it's actually an evolutionary adaptation because in an environment in which females are scarce, you want to pass along your genes to the next generation. Making big investments in parenting efforts makes a lot of sense. But when females are plentiful, the best mating strategy emphasizes mating effort over parenting effort. All right. Is there a silver lining to this for women, they ask? There has been some reaction from women who found the book life-affirming because they realized it's not them. They had been blaming themselves for their lack of success in the dating world, and this was kind of assuring in some way. Of course it's men's fault. It's men's faults for everything. It's not me. I'm not the problem here. How do you comfort your single friends? Oh, you'll find someone. When statistically many of them won't unless they lower their standards. She asks. Okay. Says, see, I hate that lower your standards thing because I'm always thinking about my friend who married a janitor, and I don't view their marriage as lowering your standards. I view this as making a different kind of choice. As an older married guy, I also have something else to add. All marriage involves compromise. Say it louder for the morons who have the insane standards they're never going to let down. You'll learn this. Sometimes the fun part of marriage is working through a compromise and figuring out your comfort zones. So the lowering your standard thing irks me a little bit. If lowering your standards means marrying an asshole, I'm with you. But if it means marrying someone who makes $60,000 instead of $600,000, I'm resisting that. More and more women are deciding to live independent lives and not get married. Could that trend actually be the result of there just not being enough men? Of course it is. It's very important to understand that I'm not endorsing marriage. I'm not endorsing monogamy. I think people can lead fulfilled lives without getting married. Horrible advice, I guess, especially for women since they're constantly seeking marriage and the picture-perfect wedding. You can also ask the same question about hookup culture. I'm not the morality police, but at the same time, I kind of wonder if men and women, in particular, would be less enthused about hookup culture if traditional relationships were more available. I don't know the answer to that, but I wonder. So this woman says, so is my generation headed for an absolute train wreck of divorce and loneliness? It sounds like a perfect storm. It does sound like a perfect storm. However, we are not voles or fish. We have a moral compass that animals do not. So my belief, my hope is that once you shine a light on this stuff, the behavior will change. This guy's clueless. I kind of believe that once everybody knows that guys are acting like pigs, or that women are better off expanding their dating pool, the behavior will change. So it's men that are acting like pigs. Guys, do you hear this? It's not women acting like hoes. No, we're going to blame the men. It's not the women who choose the men and choose to open their legs and choose to give it up to a man that obviously wants that one thing. We're going to blame the men. The men are being the pigs. It's not the women. No, their decisions don't matter. They didn't demand monogamy. They didn't demand commitment. They didn't demand anything from the man, just a one-night hookup. Fun, yes, queen, yes, I had my fun. But it's still a man's fault. Unreal, dude. These people, like this entire article is complete trash. I also think that people will start dating across educational lines. A woman will never settle for a lesser man. This guy is a moron. I think it's inevitable, given that the numbers are, and actually if you look at the African-American community where there's almost twice as many women graduating from college as men, these cross-educational pairings are far more common. There's some Pew Research data showing that African-American women are more likely to marry men who are less educated than them. Are there any societies where men outnumber women, or where women have the power that men have in America, she asks? And the guy responds, China. There was a semi-recent story in Bloomberg, and it quoted a young couple who were about to start having a family, and the dad said, oh, I hope I have a girl. Having a boy is just too expensive. Because in the middle upper class in China, it is now accepted that in order to be marriageable, a young man has to own his own apartment In Shanghai, that could be $300,000 to $400,000, and he has to own a car too. This creates pressure not only on the young man, but on the family to be able to afford to help him. It's a reverse dowry, essentially. Wow. What a doozy of an article. I'm not honestly surprised at all that men are to blame for everything in this article. It's such a woke garbage piece, and that they can't see the role certain gynocentric forces in society have had in causing men to literally either go their own way or fall completely behind. We're not going to talk about the socioeconomic effects of being a man and being able to provide for your family, and not having that ability causes you to fall down the ladder, get picked by women less, or completely ignored. We're not going to talk about the financial pressure men face because wages have stagnated. You can't even afford to have a normal job in some factory and get a house, a car, and a stay-at-home wife anymore. Economically, financially, we're just completely out of whack. It takes two people to raise even a decent family today, and that is already being priced out of the market. Look at where we're at with inflation and the housing market. Hell, the used car market, anything. If you try to purchase anything right now, this is not going to slow down. The bubble may deflate slowly or pop horrendously, and we may have another '08. But at this point, for Western men, it seems like the best deal is to literally leave the country, man. You have to create a source of income for yourself that makes you boundless. Don't work for a company, some sort of business where you can sell product or a service online somehow and leave. Or own properties and put them out for rent if you somehow have the capital for that. And then you go out of the country and you find yourself a more traditional woman, and you're going to get shit on because they're going to say, oh, well, you just went out there to find a broke, poor woman that has to depend on you. And they can say whatever they want. At the end of the day, what options do you have here when like 200-pound, 5'4" gremlins, Oompa Loompas, literally look at you like you're a disgusting hobbit and a troll? Like it's mind-blowing. They hold their nose up to you every time you walk up to them and approach them, as if how dare you be breathing the same air as them. It's a joke, man. The Western woman today has like absolutely insane standards and demands. And it's going to cause more and more of them to go and become cat and dog moms. And they're going to be single, freezing eggs, praying, hoping and praying for a man. A lot of them will do like surrogates, or they'll go to sperm banks to try to have kids by themselves. I mean, we see this coming. Economically, men are screwed. Socially, men are screwed. I mean, think about it. Men are evil. That's like the prevailing thing. We've been oppressing women. The patriarchy, we all benefit from it. Privilege, 10,000 ways a man is privileged. So society tells you men are trash. Economically speaking, you can't afford anything with today's wages and employment. And then relationship-wise, women are told through social media and whatever, corrupted by consumerism, that they need to get a man that can afford them a Disney, like basically a dream lifestyle. He has to make 6 figures and beyond. He has to be able to afford me all the bags. We have to go on all the trips. Basically a sugar daddy, sugar baby lifestyle where you're nothing but a walking wallet. And any normal man making $60,000 working for some average company in his local town, like, dude, how do you compete with that? You can't. Women now have access globally to men. If she has an Instagram profile and she's even remotely attractive, somebody DM'd her something and offered to fly her out somewhere, or offered to pay her for some trip nearby in town. The local sugar daddy. It's wild, man. I don't blame men for going overseas. And at this point, honestly, with everything I'm seeing and what, like the way society is headed and the way men are treated in the West today, take flight, boys. Find calmer waters. There are other seas to fish in. And you're not, don't be bound by this one. We already know the rules we already know the laws for marriage are not fair, and especially child support court out here in the West. Basically, keep your head down as a man. Focus on improving yourself, not for women, but just for your own mental, spiritual, and physical health. And figure out a way, man, to make yourself boundless in a way, to not be, tied down to some company in some city somewhere. And that way you can move around the world and enjoy life for what it really has to offer. Because the well you may be drinking from could very well be poisoned. That is true. And you don't have to keep going to the same well. So let me know what you guys think. And let me know what some of you have done. I know we have some older viewers that are in their 60s, some in their 70s, that have been through this song and dance. And I've read quite a few comments saying they're happy, man. They went out, found a traditional wife, became expats. Life's good. They have nothing to complain about, and they'll never marry a Western woman. Other guys got lucky. They found a woman here that was raised in a more traditional household, had a strong father figure present, which is increasingly rare these days. The nuclear family's been all but destroyed, and snagged a good one. And they're living happily ever after. We don't hear enough about those stories because it's an absolute mess out there today. We'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Later.